when you talk Scottish rugby, two names that immediately go up in lights. Gary Armstrong and Craig Chalmers.
When we got on the pitch, the communication, he'd know where I was and he'd just chuck him and I'd try and catch him, and left, right, yes, no, all the little calls, fish and chips, ham and eggs.
Jim Telfer, obviously no stranger to hurt himself, once said that Gary had an inhuman tolerance of pain, the hardest man he'd ever coached. He was sometimes referred to as the ninth forward.
9 times out of 10, I would probably shoot my own players more than another team just to get the ball away.
We were both winners. We both wanted to win desperately.
Who would have thought that you'd be playing England, winner takes all at Murrayfield? And the senior players had decided, right, instead of running out of Murrayfield, we'll go to walk out. And I always remember the noise when we walked out onto Murrayfield was just unbelievable.
Hello Dream Team, welcome along to this week's episode of The Good, The Bad and The Rugby, as always with our good friends at Continental Tires. Hope you're well. This week we're doing something a little bit different. We have got a new series that we're going to be running on The Good, The Bad and The Rugby called Rugby's Greatest Unions, where we bring together the best playing partnerships that our game has ever seen. And we've got a number of ideas, a number of places that we want to take this into the club game, into the Lions, but over the next few weeks we're going to be very much focusing on all things Six Nations, and it's very much an opportunity for you to get involved as well. So we'd love to hear in the comments the types of partnerships, combinations and unions that you've really enjoyed over the years and that you'd love us to have in studio celebrating and getting into the nuts and bolts with. But this week we start with, when you talk Scottish rugby, two names that immediately go up in lights. Gary Armstrong and Craig Chalmers. They played the pivotal positions of 9 and 10. They played 32 times together for Scotland, including the last time that Scotland won the Grandslam back in 1990. A year later, Scotland would go on to make it to the World Cup semi-finals with this duo starting, and that, of course, is Scotland's best ever finish at a Rugby World Cup. There is a really, really good book, which if you haven't read it, I highly recommend you do, called The Grudge by Tom English, which goes into real detail about the 1990 Scotland Grand Slam. And in it, Tom describes Gary as teak tough and Craig as, in inverted commas, not lacking in confidence.
I'll be described like that a few times.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair. Which sounds like the perfect halfback combination to me. It's really good to have you both in. And, to sort of start, you've come down on the train together today?
Yeah, no, we came down. We met Gary picked me up this morning at 7:30. Always on time, Gary. Very punctual. Down the road, we never stopped talking the whole way down about how he looked after me all those years. Never threw any crap back to me. He only gave me the good stuff. He took all the bashes and the knocks, and you can probably tell by his nose, but it's like he's tough as teak. As described, that's what he was.
Quite right. Fair's fair, though. You both look 15 years younger than the man in pink on the end there. So yeah. I'm not sure what that says about the amateur game. It's really good to have you. I mean, would you go along with that? How often do you see each other now? And how quickly
Well,
does
we've
it
not really
pick up?
seen each other for a wee while now.
Have you not?
And every time we catch up, it's just like yesterday, take off or left off. And I think the sort of 1990 squad was a close-knit squad. And we're all great friends. We all keep in touch, but we didn't see one another a lot. But when we do see one another, we'll make up for it.
Fantastic.
Plenty of chat.
I can imagine. I was going to say, how are you? But I mean, do you mind me saying you've got a bit of a battle at the moment? How are you getting on with that?
Yeah, I'm good. It's recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. Just found out by random. I mean, since you turned 50, I've had a test every year. Just test the bloods, make sure everything's okay. And this year, it came back. My PSA level was a little bit high, and so listen, just really important when you turn 50, you go and get tested for these things, because if you catch it early enough, like I have, mine's is contained in the prostate, so I'm going to get mine up. Kenny Logan had it.
Yeah, I remember
recently,
him saying, yeah.
And Kenny had his taken out, so we've spoken to Kenny about it, and I'm going to get mine taken out after the Six Nations. So it's not a slow growing cancer,
right?
So it's
I thought for a minute you were going to say I spoke to Kenny. He's going to do it. I was like, that's the last person.
He went through it, and so he's been good to talk to about it. First useful thing he's ever actually given me. But he's been great. And John Rutherford, the ex Scotland fire half, he had it as well. So we've been talking.
Yeah.
And guys don't talk enough about these kind of things. So I think it's important that, guys go out and get tested when they turn 50.
Yeah.
1 in 8 guys in the UK, white guys, will get it. 1 in 4 black guys will get prostate cancer at some point in their life. So yeah, it's pretty common. It's the biggest killer of men.
Yeah. It's really good of you to come down, particularly given your news, and very good of you to share it as well, because we've often heard back on this show that when people talk about these sorts of things, it makes a bit of a difference. So good on you for doing that. There's so much to talk about between the two of you, and it's really, really good to see the both of you together. We're going to come on to your careers and your highs in a moment. So every week we do a Continental Tires Showstopper moment of the weekend. Hask, I'll throw this one at you. We obviously haven't touched too much on Ireland, who were pretty ruthless in dispatching Italy. So we've thrown a few sort of headlines. Ben White's try for Scotland off a brilliant break from Harry Patterson. We had Louis Bielbiari's try, which gave France the lead on 70 minutes. Jack Crowley played very well for Ireland. Did you like the look of him? Nice try.
Yeah, he's
nice
fantastic. I've been really impressed with him.
Yeah.
And 2 bits of skill that he showed at the weekend. The two offloads were outstanding. And I think his first try for Ireland or Munster. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I just want to mention Harry Patterson.
Yeah.
Because he's only played 4 senior games for Glasgow, I think. 4 or something. He played with Robbie at Accies. That's the only time I've seen him play.
Yeah.
Playing for Edinburgh Accies. And I thought he was flawless on Saturday. Maybe out of position a little bit for the second French try.
Yeah.
But I thought he was outstanding. I thought if Scotland had won that match, he would have been man of the match for me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Great shout. The other one that I want to throw out there is Stevie Mulrooney, who sang Ireland's Cool. Don't know if you saw that. It's gone viral.
Unbelievable,
what a voice.
That's what I mean. I already know what I was going to go for.
Are you? Are you a man of the people?
I am massively a man of the people.
Things
I
have
like
changed.
the people as long as they're behind a rope. But I think Stevie Mulrooney, because you think about. I always think about opportunities that I've done things never sung in front of people because I've got a worse voice, but being asked to stand up and speak or perform. It takes a very special person to be able to do that, and to at that age in front of that many people on that stage. What a brave kid! What an incredible voice! What an amazing talent.
How old was he?
8.
He's 8.
Yeah.
That's mental. I think for me,
Continental Tires Showstopper moment of the week.
Stevie Mulrooney.
Yeah. Well done, Stevie Mulrooney. That was really, really special, and obviously it's gone viral. I'm sure you've seen it by now. But Stevie Mulrooney is our Continental Tires Showstopper moment of the weekend. Obviously, the majority of your career, as you mentioned earlier, was sort of amateur into the early days of professionalism. What do you make of the TMO, constant replays? Andrew Cotter described it perfectly on Saturday. Death by television. Try, yes or no?
It was a bit of a mix-up, but to be quite honest, Scotland should have won the game long before that. It should never have come down to that. They had chances early on in the game, in the second half especially, to score some tries with overlaps, and they never took them. And I worry for Scotland because you only seem to play 55 minutes and then switch off.
Yeah.
It was the same against Wales. We got to the 55, 60-minute mark and then something happens. We seem to go through the whole repertoire of what we want to do, and then when we finish that repertoire, they stop playing.
Yeah.
And it's quite worrying for the big games coming up.
I thought it was France were poor on Saturday, really poor. And I think that was a really good chance for Scotland. We've missed out again on another great opportunity to build something quite big. But now we've got to look forward to England. But the TMO was a shocker. You could see it was down. You could see it was on the ground. But listen, it wasn't given, and it's done now. We can't do anything about it. Just got to go and beat England 2 weeks' time.
Originally, TMO was only brought in for foul play.
Yeah.
And it just progressed. And now they're refereeing the game from the touchline. And back in the day, we probably wouldn't have got half the tries we got if TMO had been there.
Oh, geez, I wouldn't have very many then.
Because we used to cheat back in the day.
Right. But in many ways, that is the game of rugby. It is a game where it's all about seeing how much you can get away with. And nowadays, the TMO means that it's
how far you can push the laws.
How far you can
and
push
that
the laws.
it is. And he pushed the laws all the time. The stuff that he got up to at scrum-half.
Is that fair?
Probably.
Well, you tell the boys about your biggest experience.
My first trip to France. So I came up a guy called Pierre Berbizier.
Oh, yeah.
And in that 80 minutes of rugby, I learned more in that 80 minutes in my whole rugby career up to then. Because I didn't think there was a referee on the pitch. He was either getting an elbow in the mouth, or he was standing on my toes, or he was putting the ball in for me. Every time I went to put the ball in, he would nudge it in with his foot or something. And I'm like, where is the referee? He never reffed the game or anything. And it's all about winning respect. And it wasn't over the end of the game. I went to shake Pierre Berbizi's hand, and he turned and walked away. And I thought, oh, well, he kind of didn't get any respect. They were the first time in France. So 2 years later, on the same park, I gave him exactly the same as he gave me 2 years before. And he was the first man to come across and shake my hand. You play well today. Because I just kicked the shit out of him.
Where does that come from? Because interestingly, because I'm going to read a quote about you, because I was fascinated by it. So Jim Telfer, obviously no stranger to hurt himself, once said that Gary had an inhuman tolerance of pain, the hardest man he'd ever coached. He was sometimes referred to as the ninth forward. Like how would that manifest? Like how would it manifest itself? Like, how do you get a reputation like that, especially with Jim Telfer? Like, do you must have fill people on the field, fill people a night out, fill people in training? Like,
no, I think it's the fear or no performing well. And back in the day, it was every 2 weeks that the Five Nations played. So in between, you went back and played for your club. And there was one day I didn't play very well for Scotland, and I got out the works van to go and get a paper, and all I heard up the Jed High Street was, "Armstrong, you were shite on Saturday." And it was like, keep your foot in the ground. It's like, poof.
Well, you said the works van. What did you do?
I was working for a building company in Jed at the time.
Really? So you literally in between games?
In between games, I go back.
I love that. I love that.
We'll train on a Sunday before the next international. So you play on the Saturday for your club, train on a Sunday, meet up on a Wednesday, forwards and scrum-halves, because you weren't allowed the whole squad there on a Wednesday. So the forwards and scrum-halves would meet up on a Wednesday. We would watch them scrummage, line out, live rucking with Jim Telfer. So the forwards kick shit out of one another.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that quite box office viewing?
Yeah.
It's good to watch. It
was always Derek White laid down and they'll run over the top.
Di Young told me a story once about, do you call clacket? What do they call clacket? What do they call the studs in Scotland?
Tackets.
Yeah, tackets. Right. He said to Di Young, he was like in the middle of the lines, he's like, Di, you lie on the floor and we'll all run over you. And Di Young just said, fuck off, I'm not doing that. And Jim was like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not doing that. And but apparently someone would lie down and they just trample him.
You went to guys in the Scottish squad that actually did that. They offer to go and do that because Jim would love that. So that would give it a little bit of a boost for them if they did that and they sacrificed themselves. But this guy here, I'll tell you how ruthless he was. The week before we played England for the Grandslam in 1990.
Here we are. Ding. Stop the clock.
1990 was a great year.
Yeah, I bet.
We were playing Jed Forest, and it was for us, if we won the game, we had the game in hand.
Because you were Sterling?
Melrose.
Beg your pardon.
Melrose. So we had the game in hand, but if we beat Jed the week before the Grand Slam game, we would win the league. And it was quite a tight game. Big crowd, 7,500, 8,000 at Melrose watching the game. And I got a bang in the head. I was seeing stars, and I could hear Jim Telfer from the side shouting on, he can't come off. If he comes off, he's out for 3 weeks. He can't play against England next week. So obviously I stayed on. It's a Jed scrum. Picks up the ball, next scrum, and runs straight the fuck at me. So I'm trying to maybe play with him the week after for Scotland again in their biggest game of our lives. And he's running straight at me again, trying to make me tackle him again. Like, Jesus Christ.
Trying to take you out of it.
So that's how ruthless he was.
Yeah.
But he was...
I love that, though. I love that because it's always one of those, especially those old battles between clubs, you know, like it is funny, you know, a lot of people talk about being in a squad with players, especially with the Lions, you know, when you guys come together and there was those old rivalries. And because the games were so much more physical in the dark arts, in inverted commas, than they are now. I think obviously the guys are bigger and more sort of fitter, and the collisions are bigger. But obviously you weren't going to get an elbow to the head or a knee to the head now, or more often than not. It is amazing that kind of ability to switch on.
The was involved then, and if there was any of my players near the ball, they got shooed off of me. Yeah, because I wanted the ball.
Yeah,
and 9 times out of 10, I would probably shoot my own players more than another team just to get the ball away.
But it's true, back in the club games in those days, the referee was the only person that was impartial. Okay? You had a touch judge from Melrose, you had a touch judge from Jedburgh, who did it every week, and they couldn't put a flag up for it. So as soon as the referee's back was turned, you were fair game. You know? So you were taught to protect yourself after you passed the ball, especially a 10. Back in those days, because you got a lot of late tackles.
Who were the worst offenders in Scottish club rugby at that time?
Oof, for hitting you late.
Well, just the ones when you went. You took to the field, you knew that there was going to be a hell of an afternoon.
There was the McLeish brothers at Melrose. I remember at Melrose, the first time I ever played at Melrose, I got tackled in the halfway, the ball was in the 22, and I was just getting up, and one of the McLeish brothers ran right over the top of me on the halfway, studs right on my back, and I'm like, what was all that about? And that's what they were like.
Right.
But there was a great one. It was the Calders. The Calders, Stuart Melville were playing against Melrose, and one of my first, games against Stuart Melville. And Finlay was standing next to me. Finlay Calder was always offside. Right. They should have given me a white jersey in that Grand Slam game. Ding. Yeah. And basically, after the game, it was 9-7. We'd lost the game, and we were clapping each other in. And the next minute, I knew there was punches getting thrown. The McLeish brothers and the Calder brothers going at it, and just things like there's a guy, Gary Waite, was playing against Kelso, and this guy was tying his shoelace in the middle of the field, and Tom McLeish ran past and just hooked him from behind. In the middle of just so much stuff went on back in those days.
Yeah.
And
Border rugby.
It was dangerous. It was very dangerous. I'm not sure how I survived, but
it's a very dangerous game to play. It was better in my day, in inverted commas, but I think a lot of people look back with extraordinary sort of nostalgia to what the sport was when you were in your
change it. I wouldn't change the time I played.
No.
I mean, there wasn't the money. We were amateur until we first started. He played 88. I was 89, but we had 7, 8, 9 years of amateur international rugby.
Yeah,
and we had some great times. But we were always competing. I mean, that first year we went to Paris. We went to Paris to win a championship, and the next again year was, and then we were World Cup the next again year, very close. I thought it was like this every year.
Yeah.
When you start playing for Scotland, we were very lucky to be in with some really good senior pros. The Calders, the Jeffreys, the David Souls, these players, the Hastings sisters, Gavin and Scott.
Very good.
So these guys, they helped us a lot.
Yeah.
And on and off the field.
I bet.
When you played together, obviously, when you weren't playing opposite each other, trying to fill each other in, did you were you a bit more of a protector? Craig, were you kind of looking after him? Like if someone came and hit him late, would you try and get him, or would you sort of?
Well, that's what teammates are for.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if anything kicked off, it was one and all. And nowadays, you can't lay a finger on anybody.
No. There's not
many cameras going about, but back in the day, it was all in, and they could only send one person off. Couldn't send the two teams off.
He looked after me a lot.
Yeah.
Because any crap ball that came back from the forwards, he would just take on himself.
Oh, really?
And unfortunately, what that meant was he was at the bottom of the ruck, and I got a pass from Kenny Milner. John Jeffrey I was trying to catch it at all angles, but it was he was always looking after me. But not always off the field. He was a bit of a naughty boy off the field as far
I'd
as
probably be the worst roommate, to be quite honest.
Really?
That needs some explanation.
Yeah.
he was
just pranks. He used to get up the pranks.
nightmare, absolute nightmare.
Is that from the building industry though? That mindset.
Just get bored. I like to keep something to do. I always remember one time at the Dalmahoy where Scott Hastings, he'd never seen as many bubbles in this bath in my life before. But he didn't realise that I'd poured loads of chocolate in it.
He used to do so much stuff. He'd cling film in the toilets, and you come in after a night out and you'd be spraying everywhere, or the worst one that you did was you come back in after a night out. We'd always meet on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
We'd do a few line-outs with the forwards and some kick-offs, and then we'd go back to the hotel, get some food. This is Wednesday before we played.
Yeah.
And then we'd get down to the pub, Merlin, King's Bar, Harry's Bar, then Fingers. And then you'd get a kebab and then you'd be home. But you get back to the hotel and you'd just be getting into your bed, and he'd always had the key for your room, and he'd filled it with broken biscuits. The biscuits you get. And you think, I don't really need this, so you just jump into bed and go to sleep. But just stuff like that. It's just annoying stuff.
Did anyone ever get you?
Oh, plenty of times.
Really? Can you think of any?
But if you fly with the crows, you get shot with them, don't you?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I never did that because the retribution.
So what I want to go back to is, you obviously made your debut for Scotland a couple of months after Gary. When you began, did you instantly get on? Was it a friendship from the start? Was it a respect, or was there a bit to work through?
Well, we played with each other as as young as under an age group level. But then, instantly we sort of did click. We played in for the south of Scotland in this district championship, and we won that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played in the trial together. We were in the same team in the Scottish trial. We played for the Reds against the Blues. And we narrowly lost the game.
Did you like those trial games? Did you think no? Because I always my heart would sink. Like sometimes the possibles versus probables.
When the hand
you'd go and go because I had no problem. Obviously in training all the time it would spill over. I had plenty of training ground fights. You'd always have those kind of wars. But as soon as you saw a trial game, you were like, this is just going to go horribly wrong.
It was fine when you weren't in the team.
Yeah.
But once you're in the team and established, you didn't like them quite so much.
That's shot at.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that goes to training and anything in general, isn't it? Once you got pole position, you're like, actually, no.
So John Jeffrey played in very few trials, didn't he?
No.
JJ used to always have a little hamstring injury before the trial.
Old head,
smart,
Didn't know how to lose
experience.
his position.
But yeah, we got on pretty well. We always got on well off the
We
field,
did, aye.
and in some ways we were quite different. But when we got on the pitch, the communication, he'd know where I was, and he'd just chuck him, and I'd try and catch him, and left, right, yes, no. All our little calls, fish and chips, ham and eggs.
What was fish and chips?
Box kick.
Would you guys, like you said, would you hang out? Because there's very few partnerships in sport that actually sometimes it translates over. Because the belief, especially of members of the public when they watch a team, that you've got to live and breathe, you've got to spend every hour together on and off the field to forge a partnership. But actually, sometimes people can be very different. Some of my best teammates, some of the best people I played with, we would train together, do extra work together, but we would finish and we wouldn't necessarily spend any time in the social situation. Were you guys different, or do you spend time together? Do you have different hobbies, or?
Well, we've got different hobbies and everything. We didn't really spend a lot of social time together, but if we were out having a pint, we'd meet up and have a beer. And
Oh, fine.
But we weren't in one of our pockets.
No.
Just when it come to playing the game, we both wanted the same thing, and that was to win.
Because when Tins talks about his kind of experience in sort of the '99 World Cup squad, he said that he'd look at Jeremy Guskett and sort of Mike Catt, and he knew what that night out was going to be about, kind of pretty high end velvet rope, bottles of champagne, and then he said he saw the Leicester contingent, Martin Johnson, Garforth, Roundtree, and he looked at that. You go, I don't know what that's about, and he obviously tells a fantastic story. Went down a rabbit hole, and it was awful. Basically, walked in there, Roundtree's in his pants, wrestling Garforth on the table. Jono punched him in the face like gnarly, and he obviously panics and calls up Guskett and goes, "Can I still come?" you two are obviously with the introduction. Junkyard Dog, kind of, like Sandy Road Boy, a bit more glitzy. Were the nights out very different? Would you be, like your building trade background?
There's a couple of times I've put him in his bed. He's just had too much red wine.
Put to bed, wrapped in clean film with covered in biscuits by the sound of it.
But you I can imagine you're a wine bar kind of man, and you were sort of arm wrestling.
I was still in the pints when he was in his red wine.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Was it like that?
It was a wee bit like that.
That was a bit of a perception, I think.
Don't backtrack now, mate.
That's too much.
That's a bit of a perception.
I can see you in the back with a dirty martini, and you're like arm wrestling a bloke with a cigarette on the corner with a tattoo. Was it? No,
Yeah, it's more like that. Yeah.
Fine.
I wasn't arm wrestling anybody.
No.
No, we were quite different in many ways, but we were very same in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah.
Like mentality, the way that we played the game, the way that we were both winners. We both wanted to win desperately, and we were both good teammen. I think we looked after each other, but we were big contributors to how the team played and how the team was successful. I think we had great guys in front of us. We had a fantastic back row with Derek White, John Jeffrey, and Finlay Calder.
Yeah.
There is a front five as well, but they didn't really get much of a mention. And then the back line was glitzy as well. Tony Stanger, Tukalo, the Hastings boys. Great Sean Lenine. So with a great squad. We got on so well.
Yeah.
And as Gary said before, we don't see each other that often. We should see each other more. We don't see enough of each other. That's true. But when we do see each other, nothing's changed. It's just the same piss taking. Rebel, you did this. Probably said some stuff you couldn't say on the show. But we had a great time when we played, and but we still we cycle a little bit now. We get on the bike a few times, obviously with Doddy's cycling charities and all that kind of stuff, raising funds for MND. So because Gary was obviously a a big mate of Doddie's because he went to Newcastle at the same time.
Yeah.
So, so the bikes are now something we need to get more on the bike and get together more.
But we knew our place back then. Again, there was a seniority. The senior players, they taught us how to be, and we passed it on to the young players in our day.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost that in rugby.
So it's their fault. It's John Jeffrey's fault.
Who were your main kind of the people who kind of oversaw you coming into
Finlay Calder.
Really?
I used to go home about my dad and say, "Geez, Dad, that Finlay Calder's got in for me." And now he's like a second dad because looking back, I knew what he wanted. He made me the player I probably was by just pushing me.
In what ways? Like how would he do it?
It would pick me up on all my mistakes and drive me that way. And then you had John Jeffrey there as well. They looked after us on the field and off the field and sort of moulded us. And I spotted that down at Newcastle when all the young guys come in for university. And the biggest one was when Duddy was there. We all had our own pegs in the changing room, like probably you have. And this young guy come in and took Duddy's peg.
Ooh, that's an excellent.
That twice.
Fucking hell. That's
Duddy just walked in, took his clothes, dumped them on the floor. You have to earn this peg. And the young boy's like... And that was your seniority, but that's gone again. That's gone in rugby.
We had a similar time with Damien Cronin. We had no pegs. You had a place where you changed, and that you always changed. We were always in that corner. You, me, and JJ in that corner. But Tom Smith came in, young Tom, the late great Tom Smith.
Great Tom Smith.
And he came in as a youngster, 21 years old. And he was changed. He put his bag down in Damien's place, and Damien came in. And Damien wasn't like Damien. Just says right. They started like fisting, not obviously, not scrapping, but had each other by the collar because he chucked his stuff away, and he picked it up and he chucked his stuff away. It was like kids in a playground. this is before training. Yeah, they had to then go and knock shit out of each other on the training park. But yeah, that's the only time I saw it. But you all had your spot, and you earned your place in the changing room, and you knew your place as well. Yeah. We certainly did.
At this point, just a very quick note from our friends at NordVPN, who are back and are offering Good, Bad and Rugby listeners an exclusive deal. Did you know if you are abroad during the Six Nations, you can switch your virtual location to back home, so you can access your streaming services to watch the game. Tins is away skiing at the moment, so he's been tucking into this over the course of the weekend. And what's quite interesting is looking at Gary and Craig, who have gone very quiet and suddenly like, what the hell are we talking about?
What is a VPN?
So James is now going to give the good people north of the border
some cream for
a quick
VPN.
lesson on NordVPN. James.
So NordVPN, it's basically if you get a VPN, it protects your online security, protects people from hacking you. People can't trace your computer, and also you can watch rugby and stuff abroad and movies and favourite TV series. So when I lived in France and Japan, I had a VPN to watch that.
I think there's a documentary and getting Gary connected to NordVPN. That's going to be
that on my teletext.
That's going to be a six-part thriller.
Internet, can you hear me? I need a VPN. Internet.
Is there anybody out there?
I like that IT crowd. There's an episode of IT crowd again. You got to have a TV to see it. But one of the women tells the internet's in a box, and he just carries it because I've got the internet. Obviously, it doesn't exist. But I can imagine I could trick Gary, prank Gary to think he's got the internet in the back of his car.
Are we taking the piss unnecessarily? Are you a tech guru? No. This is fair game.
I've still got teletext, man.
Really amazing.
CFAX
101. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goodbadrugby. Gary, that's nordvpn.com/goodbadrugby. Okay,
I'll try it.
We'll give you an extra 4 months on the
out.
2-year plan and a bonus gift if you sign up there. And the link is in the podcast episode description box. 1990. We got to get into it. So we'll talk the decider in a moment too. But how well did you guys play in the preceding rounds to that Grandslam? Because as England fan, I can remember very clearly that it was a special England team that had put together some amazing performances. But had you matched that? Did you feel you were
the only game we really performed in was the French game?
Yeah.
And I think it's because they had 14 men. They got a man sent off because they stamped on John Jeffrey.
Right.
Carminati, I think, got sent off.
That's the only game we really dominated. We struggled in Wales. We come away with a 13-9 win.
Yeah.
And we struggled in
First up in Ireland was 13-9 as well, I think.
Yeah. Everyone always talks about 5 Six Nations, the importance of momentum. Was it something that you felt building throughout the course?
Definitely so. Who would have thought that you'd be playing England, winner takes all at Murrayfield?
Yeah.
And you didn't actually realise what kind of bubble you're in until you're old and looking back. But building up to that game, there was no way we were going to win. The press had England's strong favourites. Even Jim Telfer said, right, I'm not wanting anybody to read the paper. I'm going to tell England that they're unbeatable. And they started to believe their own press a wee bit. And we knew that we had a chance at Murrayfield.
Yeah.
And the senior players had decided, right, instead of running out of Murrayfield, we're going to walk out. And I always remember the noise when we walked out onto Murrayfield was just unbelievable for the start of that game right to the finish. But the build-up for the Dalmahoy Inn was just something special. But the whole Edinburgh was buzzing that day.
In those days, the teams didn't go out together. They went out individually, so the away team would always go out first. And I always remember that day, we waited. We left England out there for quite a while before we actually went out. There's all that Margaret Thatcher stuff going on.
I was going to say, do you remember?
I don't remember any.
Were you aware of the political undercurrent? It was all poll tax and everything, wasn't it?
Mum and Dad paid the poll tax. I lived at home, so I was totally not aware of poll tax.
Right.
But so we left them out there with about 4 or 5 knocks on the door, and David Solon Finlay and the senior player were just leave them there. And then we walked out. I mean, the Hastings boys. I mean, the guys. Only 4 or 5 guys were allowed to talk to the press. So we weren't allowed to talk to the press at all, the younger guys.
Right.
4 or 5 senior players were doing the talking to the press. But also Gary said the senior players talked about walking out. The Hastings boys.
Before that though, even when we arrived at Murrayfield, you walk onto the pitch to see what it's like. Even walking onto the field, I look to the right and here's all the English players with their wives getting their photos taken, and you think, yeah, there's a bit. The game's not even played, and they're getting these photos taken. The momentous moment at Murrayfield. It just gets your heckles up a wee bit.
Well, England came to play. England had wiped aside everybody into that game, and they were super confident. Mm-hmm. They were staying down in Peebles Hydro. I think they were staying down there, and I think that a few things had gone wrong in the hotel. Plus, there was. Was it
the old car alarm trick, was it?
No, we had that in our hotel that night.
Right. That was him fucking about. Wrong hotel, Gary. Oh, sorry, fellas.
It was the night before the game, that our game against England, the alarm went off, and Jim Telfer was out in the car park with his slippers on at about 3 a.m. Right. Some Englishman who was staying at the hotel had lit the fire alarm off at 3 or 4 a.m. Nobody got up to get out, apart from Jim. But the English boys were staying at Peebles Hydro, and they had it was like a tapestry of Bannockburn, which maybe was a little bit of omen for us, because when it came to Murrayfield on the Saturday, I think they were super confident, and they had every right to be super confident because they were a very, very good team, a talented team, but they probably got the biggest lesson, which made them even stronger to win those 3 Grand Slams in the next 3 or 4 years that they did. They tried to come in and play rugby, and we just kept knocking them down. Yeah. And
there was one point in the first half we took a quick penalty, and I fed it to Finlay Calder. And he ran into the 22 of England and stopped dead. And then all of a sudden the Scottish forwards got behind him and drove him for about 10 yards, and that set the stall of the whole game. England knew they were in a game from that penalty. They're like, oh shit, here they come. And that's what it was like the whole game.
No, I think that was a turning point. I think that was the main thing of the game. Like, I think it gave us the belief, that gave our forwards the belief anyway that they could match the English forwards, and physically they were huge compared to us. But it was the big turning point as well. After that came at when Gavin kicked it straight out the kickoff, and England scrum halfway line. And England knocked it on. Tiggy was at number 8.
Knocked it on.
And then we got the scrum, and our try came from
that move.
Up Gary up the blind side to Gavin. Gavin kicked it over the top, and
Tony Stanger.
And Tony Stanger picked it out of there. And Tony was struggling to make that game. Roger Baird was in standby, wasn't he? He was in standby to come in because Tony had hurt his shoulder or something. His shoulder, but he somehow found picked the ball at the sky and put it down on the deck. I think
that one was given.
That one was given. Thankfully, there was no TMO back in those days. But and that was a massive turning point. But just small margins, and Hask, it's small. Test match rugby now is small margins. It was then, and it is now. As we saw on Saturday.
I was going to ask you. So whenever obviously being an Englishman. Everyone fundamentally hates us. We're kind of quite used to that. We all, and being in the six,
not all of us,
not all of us, but most of us. Me more than most. But you kind of see it with the Six Nations because it encapsulates the rivalry. Obviously, you guys were so good, and as you said, were on that kind of pathway up to a World Cup semi. Did you? Was there? Do you remember now? Obviously, you talked about the Margaret Thatcher stuff, but was there a real passion? Was there always a really desire to beat England more so than anyone else, or is it overplayed? Do you think? Because I always imagine the old school guys, it seems to be a bit more of a rivalry even than now.
You always get an extra 10%.
Yeah.
With Scotland, England, it'll be the same with you guys playing Scotland. There's always that 10% that you didn't have to ask for. It's there.
Yeah.
Just because of the rivalry.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, I wish we
You
put
must have known a lot of them from '89.
Yeah, we did. Most of my roommates in the Lions 2 and '89 were English forwards because you always share with a back and a forward. And I usually had Dwayne Dooley or Paul Ackford or
what was that like?
Kuchu. That was scary.
Someone told me like, I mean,
I had a week with Gareth Chilcott, and I didn't really know much about Gareth Chilcott before the tour. But I read a bit of an article about him, and it said that he would have been in jail if it hadn't been for rugby. So it was quite a stressful week.
Quite a lively back.
So you're laying out your cocktail shaking, your velvet slippers, your strips again, and he's putting the sawdust down, is he?
He got whatever he wanted, to be
really.
Fair. But what a lovely guy! What a great team.
So they used to put the backs to the forwards today, because on 2017, they just stuffed him with Sean Edwards, Sean O'Brien, and just maybe look after him. And and he just stole everything, crap with the door open, which was a terrifying experience in itself. But what was who stood out as the kind of worst roommate out of those lads? Anything particularly like? Because remember, someone said that Josh, you shared with Josh Lees, you woke up and he was naked stretching. Which is pretty. None
of them were bad. To be fair,
really?
No, they're all pretty good. Some were quieter than others. Andy Robinson was quite a quiet guy. But Mike Teague was brilliant. Apart from, I always remember there's no excuse for losing the first test, but Teague was meant to play the first test match against Australia, but he cried off with an injury, as did Dooley was injured. That was probably two, of our main forwards not playing. But so he called off, but I still roomed with him. And he had 2-3 mates across from Gloucester following the tour. Fullback Tim Smith and a guy called Simon Devereux. And instead of staying in their own hotel, they stayed in my room 2 nights before. They came in lashed at 3 or 4 in the morning, Thursday night and Friday night. Night before I was playing my very first test of the Lions, they come clamouring into the room at 2 or 3 in the morning, waking me up, the night before my biggest day of my life, playing a test match for the Lions. So
Just going back to 1990, do you remember the celebrations, or were they so good you don't? Do you remember the impact? I mean, I
do remember. I remember it that morning, and I talked about it last week in the radio station with McCoist and Jeff Stelling.
Okay,
we were doing a thing for prostate cancer, and I was sharing with John Jeffrey. Okay, so if you share with John Jeffrey, it's a nightmare if you want any sleep, because he's a farmer. So he's up at 6 in the morning, throwing his shoe at you to get you up, not to get up for breakfast, but to get the kettle on to make the tea, because he was more experienced than me. So I'm up, make a cup, boil the kettle, through to the bathroom, get the water in the kettle, boil, get him a cup of tea, and then as soon as you get that, you're getting back into bed. He goes, right, come on, let's go, breakfast. So we're down for breakfast, then you're back in the room by 7:30. He goes for a bath. The phone rings. This is the morning of the game, 1990. It's Alan McCoist on the phone. He goes, is the white shark there? I goes, well, the white shark's in the bath having a swim. Preparation for the big game today. He goes, I'm looking for 2 tickets from me and my mate Noxie for the game today. Can you sort it out? Graham Souness was the coach manager at Rangers at the time, and Coisty had basically he pulled a sickie,
right?
And said he had a hamstring.
He loves his rugby. He was there on Saturday.
Yeah, he loves it. Yeah. So we got him 2 tickets sorted out, and he came to the game, and he came to the after match function, and we after we'd done all the dinner and stuff, because in those days you all had a big dinner and you got smashed together, and then you went out. We went to a little place called the Tron Tavern.
Oh, I know which is the Tron.
You know
that's got the trapdoors. Wasn't that owned by Norrie Rowan?
Norrie Rowan, yeah, that's right. Norrie Rowan owned it at the time. That's good knowledge.
Well, proper Keno.
I was at university up in Edinburgh, so I remember. There's an amazing story about you playing Romania.
Yes, Like we took
and Norrie Rowan smuggled one of the players.
Christian Raducanu.
That's right.
He smuggled them out when they were he smuggled them into the vaults and hid them there for days, and he got asylum. He got asylum, and he's now a multimillionaire.
Is that right?
Living, they were talking about it on Saturday at the event that I was at. Norrie was there.
Yeah,
he's a superstar. Norrie.
Amazing. He played prop for Scotland as well, didn't he?
Yeah, his daughter does the ghost tours around the city.
Yeah.
So Coisty was out that night with us in the pub, in the Tron Tavern, and he was obviously a Rangers player, and all the Hibs fans were a few Hibs fans and giving him a hard time. But then he's got such a gift of the gab. He just talked them round, and they were banging pints, and but that next again, the day after, I got back to bed at some point, can't remember when, but I got a knock on the door, and we'd committed to playing a charity football game the next again day. I know. And who's at the door? John Jeffrey. We'd agreed to do it with John Jeffrey. So John Collins played for Celtic, Fulham, Monaco. He was playing as well. He's a local Borders boy. So we're doing this at the Borders General Hospital, just outside Melrose. So I had to get up and go down there and get dressed up as a nurse.
The day after the Grand Slam?
The day after the Grand Slam.
Wow.
There's no amount of day for it.
And I was rough as. But JJ was there, and you know what? You just did what you were told. Yeah. I was a junior player. I was inexperienced, and he was senior player, and he was banging on my door, and I knew that if I didn't get up, he'd knock a door down.
Why was he called the Great White Shark?
I think it was because they went to Trinidad once, and they came out of the water, playing sevens, and they came out of the water, and someone said he was so white that he was Great White Shark. So I think that's how he got it.
I'm glad I'm sad it's that, and it's not the fact he hunted back rows around the world in every test match he played, and it's that he didn't look great on the beach. But
what happened to you on that night?
To be honest, I can't remember.
Celebrated in style.
I kind of bed. I wasn't embarrassed.
No, just it all started on the bus on the way back to the hotel.
Really?
Champagne, the whole lot. And there was a lot of singing going on, a lot of fans at the hotel.
Yeah, on the Monday morning, we all had jobs. So we went back to work. And
so you were Scottish Power?
I was Scottish Power.
What did you do for them?
Not very much.
Not very much. Or a name badge.
What is Scottish used to say? What's the difference between Craig Chalmers and Santa Claus? Santa Claus works one day a year. He's getting hot. Scottish Power were brilliant to me. They were absolutely fantastic, and I joined Scottish Power. My dad worked for Scottish Power, and I got a job in the office as a YTS. And as soon as I got in there and started doing that, and progressing with my rugby, they started to put me through the company in the sales and marketing and all kinds of
schmoozing.
PR. Yeah. So they were brilliant, and it was good for them, and it was good for me. But I did get a lot of hard time off of some of the co-workers. They were a little bit pissed off when I was going off to Australia for 2 months in the Lions tour. But hey, it is what it is.
We did a show before the Rugby World Cup with Princess Anne, who's Tim's mother-in-law, of course, and she was talking about 1990 and reeling off the team, and very quickly said that you were a long-haul lorry driver, which was sort of, I remember even being that age and sort of remembering it. Was that your company? I mean, how many hours a week did you spend on the road?
That wasn't my company then, but Finlay organised a job for me through the rugby.
Oh, really?
And I worked for a company called A&R Gold at the time, and he just led grain about. That Finlay gave him work, and we hauled the grain about. So I worked for him, and I got time off the train.
Right.
That's what it was like back in the day. You needed an employer that would give you time off to go and train.
Yeah.
So I done a lot of that, and it was long hours.
Yeah.
You're away at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and do your driving hours. You didn't get parked up to your own time at night, but you always go back to training Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Played on the Saturday, so. It was
long working week.
Long working
and
week.
Did you then had your own business off the back of that? Did you?
I had my own business off the back of finishing, being a professional. I bought a haulage company and I had that for 8 years.
Do you miss life on the road?
Not really.
Did the time?
I might have got to Newcastle, and I was always used to working. And when we went to Newcastle, I used to train from 8 till 10. Yeah. And then Black would say, right, that's you for the day, boys. I'm like, yeah, what? It's only 10 o'clock, Blackie. We could do something else. No. Professional rugby is all about rest. Get yourself away home. So I used to go home and I would be sitting in my boys combing at Jed for 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 11 o'clock at night combing.
Really?
And then going back down to training on the next day, do my 2 hours and then back and work on the farm again, because you're just used to working and you know sitting about.
I say I wish my professional rugby was about rest. It was like turn up at like 7:30, walk out the door at like 6:30. You know, over like a million sessions a day. I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of teams you see sometimes coming in to start the Six Nations, for example, or going into World Cup camps or World Cup warm-ups. They play really badly and they say, "Oh, we train through and we push the guys." It's like mad. I think
we were lucky because we had Blackie, and he had been in professional football
as well.
Steve Black was unbelievable,
and
he had nothing on paper. It was all up here. He'd push you to your limit. And I always remember when George Graham joined the Falcons, we were at St James's Park, and it was there was domestic departure was halfway up the steps in the stadium, and international departure was right to the top. And you know what George Graham's like, he's no battle with coming forward. And it was always harder coming down. 2 steps at a time right to the top. Walking down was a nightmare, taking you away. We got to the stairs where George is saying, right, I'm going to tell Blackie, stick his job up his arse. I'm not running up there again. Right, up we go, and away we went again. And it was fair to tell Blackie that was it.
Yeah.
And just at the minute he was about to tell Blackie, like, right away, never shower. You've done enough for the day. He pushed you right to that limit and then sent you away.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time was rest.
Yeah.
Or if he come in and he went, whoa, I didn't feel very great today, Blackie. Right, just get yourself in the jacuzzi. We need you for Saturday. He was spot on.
I never had him at all, but he seemed to know the right time to pull the pin and do the right thing for the players. He was a real players coach, wasn't he?
I've watched them push the forwards. Dean Ryan, they almost collapse in the gym with full stacks on the machine. And then Blackie would just go on and say, "What's wrong with you boys? It's not a problem." Because he had wee short arms. He was in Britain Manstorm competitions, and he just to push it up as if there was no weights on it.
You mentioned that Newcastle team. I mean, interesting. You were talking about your Scotland side of 1990, a very close collection of fairly similar characters, you might say. But that Newcastle team, I mean, just recall some of those names, because that was the sort of the early Galacticos, really. What do you remember of those days and winning the league? And
well, as soon as the game went professional, Doddy May decided that Rob had approached us. He said, Rob Andrew had approached us and said, we'll have a meeting. And we went to Otterburn for a secret meeting, which lasted about 2 minutes before people come across and asked for autographs and stuff. So that was that for it. And they invited us down to have a look round the place. And Doddy picked me up. I lived in Jed at the time. Doddy picked me up and we got down as far as Belsey. And we thought it was all a secret. 2 Scottish internationals about to sign for the Falcons. And we're like, oh shit, Dod, what do we do now? We'll just keep going. What we didn't realise was the pitch wasn't doing round by the Metro Centre. We had to phone and get directions. We didn't know where the pitch was. So I arrived at Kingston Park. We had a look around Kingston Park, and Rob Andrew, being Rob Andrew, says, we'll take you St James's because it's part of the sporting club. Unknown to us, it was the day they were signing Mr Underwood. So most of the press were at St James's.
Right.
So naive, looked around the gym, we'll take you up to the boardroom. And as soon as they opened the door, the nation's press were there, and Doddy and me walked in. We're like, oh shit, we've been set up here.
We would make up very good spies, you know.
You've got to sign now.
Walked in and they're like, oh, we couldn't put the jet. No, just here for
a reckon it was a full stitch up, that fully planned.
That was a stitch up job.
Unlike Rob Andrew to do that.
But still signed for him. He made it sound good.
Yeah, I bet he did. Yeah.
You get a nice Volvo and you got a Proton.
You got a Volvo, did you?
No, he promised us a Volvo and ended up with a Proton.
Oh, right, wow. I mean, I don't know either one's not the best, but I mean,
but it's the best move we ever made.
Yeah.
Got to Newcastle and the players that Rob bought and brought in.
Yeah.
It was just phenomenal.
Is that with Twigger Mahler as well?
Twigger Mahler,
Pat
Dean
Lamb.
Ryan, Pat Lamb.
Twigger Mahler, Stimson was there, Underwood was there, Ross Snesdale, we had Popplewell, Archer, Bentley came.
Yeah.
I saw him the other day. I love that man.
Yeah, an icon of the Lions. And I mean, were they some of the most fun days you've had? I mean, obviously winning things with Scotland, but as a club team, that was, you won the league with that lot. You had a young Johnny
We won the
Wilkinson
Tetley Better Championship too.
Yeah.
And where Doddy was the captain, and to be there was like a dream.
Yeah.
And to be paid for playing was even better.
Yeah.
And that was the first sort of professional club was Newcastle. But Sir John Hall wasn't long getting out the game when he decided he wasn't going to make any money. He sold the club off, and Mr. Thompson come along. But we were very successful the first couple of years. We started off in the second division, got promotion. Everybody they were gunning for us. We were like the English. Everybody hated us in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Well, Newcastle, the original kind of create a team, because I thought maybe Richmond had done that.
They both
Richmond were first, I think.
Oh, Richmond were first,
yeah.
They had the Quennells, didn't they?
Yeah. That was the first ever game of rugby I went to watch.
John Chapman,
that was the sort of playoff in the lower divisions. It was between Richmond and Newcastle.
Oh, really? I remember going to watch my first ever game with the Quinnell brothers. Picked up one of the players, swung him and threw him into the stands. I was like, Jesus Christ! The Dominic Chapman scoring tries for fun.
Yeah,
Ben Clark at 8, P-Show at 9.
I think Brian Moore played for them for a bit as well.
It's mad, and because that was my first introduction. Where obviously now you look back, realise how unusual it was for people to create teams like they did in football, because that's not really been repeated. Saracens. Remember, Saracens tried it so many times. Pienaar and all these other guys that they had in Castagned, but then no one ever has been able to recreate it, because then when the salary cap came and it kind of stopped all that, building a team by numbers.
You can look at the negatives. It's worrying fact that. Is rugby sustainable?
Yeah.
The Premiership clubs are all struggling. They've all got massive debt behind them. What happens there?
Yeah.
And you get the Wasps are away, Worcester are away. It is quite concerning. And
we've talked about that
where
actually
do we go in this era?
We've talked about that quite a number of times on the show, about kind of the sustainability and what's actually going to happen, and whether we need to kind of some of it needs to collapse to rebuild it properly, because I think some of the old beliefs are kind of probably hampering it a little bit. But we'll have to see, because we all love it. It's amazing. We try to never be. We always try to look on the positive side, but sometimes it's quite hard with rugby. But when you sit down with you lads, you hear the kind of stories and the nostalgia and the kind of adventures. You realise what an amazing game was, and then it makes you sort of self-reflect. Where was I when that happened and what happened? It's an amazing game.
We've done a fair amount of celebrating 1990, so we've got to ask about 1991 and the World Cup semi-final loss to England. I think it was 9-6, wasn't it? Is that an itch now you wish you could scratch?
It's always there.
If you had £1 for every time someone asked you about 1990 and £1 for every time someone's asked you about 91, which would have made you more money?
Probably 91.
Really?
Yeah. I think.
How very Scottish.
I'll be honest with you. I think it's one of those ones that I kicked during the Grandslam season 1990.
Yeah.
I took over from Gavin because Gavin kept missing the short ones, so I took over anything from 40 metres in. I would take, and he would take anything longer, and then went to New Zealand that summer.
That's right.
And we
very close.
Coulda, shoulda, but Gavin kicked in with the balls there because he liked them better. So he got kicking back, and then 91 Five Nations, I kicked again right through that, and then the World Cup. I started the World Cup as first choice kicker in 91. But the ball, I didn't like the balls. They were floaty. They were like...
They were Webb Ellis balls.
They were Webb Ellis. And the adapter bit was on the panel, not on the seam. They were just different. But I got a dead leg against Japan in the opening game, and Gavin took over the kicking in that game. And he was kicking beautifully. So we just let him kick against Ireland, Samoa, and then England in the semi-final. And he hadn't missed right up to that kick. With about 4 or 5 minutes to go and just right of the posts. I mean, it was Gavin had taken a knock. He'd taken a bit of contact. We were actually battering the English line, and he took the ball out of contact, and he said he got a bit of a dead leg, and he said he should have given it to me. To be fair, he could have given it to anybody in the team, and he would have kicked it.
It's good to see you stuck together in the aftermath of this. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, he kicked so well. He kicked everything, but to miss that one. I mean, it would have put us 9-6 up with a few minutes to go, and then England went down the other end, and some little fucker called Rob Andrew dropped a goal.
If you were 6'2", literally brushed your fingers almost.
Oh, jeez, it was so close.
Does it moments like that when you is that close?
It's just
when you're thinking, sometimes you think of your dreams going, like you always recreate them, going, if I just done this, or imagine that had happened, and then you sometimes forget.
No, it is, and you look back at it, and there is regrets. There are regrets, but you can't dwell on it too much.
You had enough good days.
That's the beauty of sport. Why we love it. Obviously the Super Bowl was on. And this will come out before, but Super Bowl was on last night. I always think when you watch people come off the bus, none of them know what's going to happen, and each one of them dreams that they're going to lift it. But at the end of it, someone is always going to be heartbroken, because that's how, someone's going to have to have made a mistake, like the 49ers player fumbling the punt return. Play into someone's hands. Someone, luckily no one missed a field goal. Not making that kick. It's not his fault. It doesn't make it any. It's not intentional. But of course, the history follows on from it. Yeah. That's why we love it. I always find that the most interesting, having been there.
People don't forget it, and Gavin's always going to have missed it. That won't change.
But in some reality,
he'll deal with it. But I mean, he deals with it really well. But it does get a lot of stick, because it probably gets more mentions than the Grand Slam, to be honest with you, because it's what could have been, and it wasn't. But
just again at the final of the World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
that's a bit that grates you a wee bit.
Yeah,
but in some alternate reality, in an alternate universe,
Yeah.
he kicked it.
Yeah.
And you won. So somebody where it's right. If the Marvel movies are anything to go by, you guys were World Cup winners somewhere.
It was weird. It's funny because when we went in, remember on the way in that day, the bus we came in this roundabout at Sight Hill, and all the bags came out the side of the bus. Right?
Wow.
Do you remember that? So we had to stop the bus, and we all get out and put the bags back into the bus, and it was right opposite this pub. So we went in to the ground, played the match, obviously, but after losing the game, we decided on the way back out that we'd go into this pub opposite where the bags came out, and we all went into this pub, like a real rough drinking man's pub in Sight Hill, and we all walked in with our shirt and tie on and had a pint with all these locals and stuff, and just chilled out. It was a sort of kind of surreal, kind of crazy thing to do. Probably a bit dangerous as well, because Sight Hill was pretty rough.
Yeah.
But just little things like that you remember about the day.
What do you make of the fact that you two were the last Grand Slam for Scotland, and you obviously played in 90? You were on the bench in 99, weren't you? Yeah. And you were both part of the last Scotland side to win the championship. It's been a long time between drinks. Obviously, this year the Grand Slam's gone, but does that irk you? Is it sadden you? Is it just part of where the sport is right now, Gary?
Well, I think we've looked at some games and you think, oh, this is Scotland's year.
Yeah.
And they win 1-2 games and then something happens to them. And I think we're in a spell under Gregor at the minute. This team's not got long left before there's a new batch of players will come in.
Yeah.
And they lost on Saturday, and that's the dreams sort of gone for winning any championship and what have you. And you start losing at home's no good. You have to win your home games in the Six Nations. And to win in Wales and come back to play at Murrayfield, they should have won that game long before all the thing at the end. They should have had that game wrapped up. Yeah. If I was captain, I would have taken 3 points just before half-time in. I would have went in 16-10 up. They ran the first penalty. It wasn't successful. That's when I would have taken the points. But they tried again and they gave a penalty away. And that's the way this team is. And you don't know, when they're on their game, they're fantastic to watch. But when they drop off that performance level, they turn into a very normal team.
Yeah.
And I think that's how France come back and pinched the win.
Having said that, they have had the best of the Calcutta Cup recently. Yeah. That's got to warm an old man's heart.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think this is the best bunch of players for a long time. I think since Finn came in about 2011, 2012, that kind of time, I think he was very erratic just when he came in at first, but he's matured into such a world class player now. Yeah. And I think
some might say he's, whatever the line was, not lacking in confidence. I think there's something around that jersey.
He's been talking to Chalmers.
He doesn't, but he's got full of belief in what he can do and his ability. And I think he's a totally rounded player now.
Yeah.
He's got everything. And just the way he draws people onto him. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the most physical guy in the world, but he gets stuck in as well. He likes a tackle. He doesn't shirk a tackle. But his kicking game is amazing, and his passing game is amazing. And I just felt that Saturday was such a great opportunity, because I think if we got past on Saturday and got that win against France, I do feel that we have got the voodoo over England at the moment. And I think it'll be a tough task for England to go up there and win anyway in 2 weeks' time. But I think if we'd won on Saturday, I think there would be no stopping Scotland in that game in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
And I think we might have got to that Grand Slam decider in Ireland, in Dublin, and at the end of the tournament. But now England are 2 out of 2. They're full of confidence. They're building confidence. They're nowhere near where they want to be from what I saw on the weekend. But they went back to the kicking game in the second half, and they look more comfortable than in the first half when they were throwing the ball about a bit more. And Wales' discipline on Saturday was amazing against no penalties after 42 minutes. So yeah, England Scotland's going to be good, but we're in a good place at the moment with the players that we've got.
Yeah,
but it's just a pity we've got maybe a Triple Crown to go for, maybe a championship to go for. I just hope we can win something very soon because we can't keep.
You got to look at England though. A lot of people have been writing England off right through the World Cup.
Yeah,
we're third in the World Cup, and they're managing to grind out close games in the Six Nations. They're not playing well, but they're still getting a win.
Yeah,
and that's dangerous.
What will make a difference? I think England is having Lawrence back. I think get Lawrence back in the centre, massive difference. I mean, your guy in the midfield, Dingwall, he's a tidy player, but for me, he's not. He lacks that, international class just yet. He's just young, I suppose. Yeah. And he's Scottish, I think, as well. So
right.
Do you boys, when you say about you want, because Tyndall in the 2003 lot, they say they want England to win a World Cup, but they don't really because the cash, the gravy train finishes. You boys, however many years has gone past, we're still winning it out. We're still talking about it. Do you really want them to win, or just because a few more years just to keep going and then let them win? Yeah.
No, we want them to win.
Oh, you're like, you sure?
Of course we do. Yeah. No, listen. I think it comes a time when we were lucky to get the chances to play when we did and who we played with and do things we did. But yeah. This group of players have worked hard. They've got very, very close. We do want them to win something. They deserve to win something. They deserve to be a game that decides something.
Yeah, which Scotland stops to watch.
Yeah.
That would be a great day.
Where we've been there. We've been very lucky at being Grandslam deciders. We went to Twickenham in '95. Grandslam decided it was basically a turnaround of what it was in 1990. And we had a chances in that game, but again, it's small margins and taking opportunities when they're there. But we didn't take an opportunity on Saturday, so we've lost out on the opportunity of a Grand Slam. But this team can still win the next 2 games. We can go to Ireland and win something tangible.
Yeah. We've also got a partnership with heycar during the Six Nations. I'm very glad we got the 2 of you in because we have a Six Nations selector brought to you by heycar where we delve into the past and try to pick out the greatest players to have played in the Six Nations since the year 2000, which very sadly rules the 2 of you out. Otherwise, you'd have been shoo-ins for this. heycar only have the best quality check used vehicles. You can buy directly online or in person through their trusted retailers. They even have vehicles that you cannot find or buy anywhere else. ! So to help with today's selections, we're going to lean on the expertise of the Scottish legends, Craig Chalmers and Gary Armstrong. We are going to ask you to pick the best 9 and 10 combination to have played in the Six Nations. Like our relationship with heycar, this game is all about great partnerships. So our picks have to be made in units. We are only allowed 1 unit per country. And there is therefore one final twist, I'm afraid, which is that our team must represent all 6 Six Nations sides. There are 6 positional units to fill, and last week we locked in Darcy and O'Driscoll as our centre pairing, which means we cannot now pick Murray and Sexton, who, according to the stats, are the most successful half-back pairing to ever played across the Six Nations. 4 titles, including 2 Grand Slams in 2018 and 2023. So the game has potentially got 1 or 2 faults in it.
You reckon?
But having said that, no Murray and Sexton, but we're going to throw out Dawson Wilkinson, 3 championships, including the 2003 Grand Slam, an 85% win record. Youngs and Ford, who also won 3 championships, including the 2016 Grand Slam, and a 75% win record. Dupont Ntamak, 2022 Grand Slam. And obviously missing this year means that France are definitely not the side that they were. Yashvili and Michalak as well, who only started 4 games across the 2002 championship and the 2004 Grand Slam, but they were used at the business end of both the tournaments. Dwayne Peel and Stephen Jones from Wales, who obviously played together for the Scarlets as well and started every game of the 2005 Grand Slam. And then if you want to go curveball, we've thrown in Alessandro Troncon and Diego Dominguez.
So just to be very clear, right, when we sat and talked about
those
this
are
last
long
week.
T's and C's. I hope you're still with us at this point.
There's a lot of caveats to it. Well, I'll explain. So we last week we went with the centre part, O'Driscoll and Darcy. We thought about, for example, the English back row, Hill,
yeah, but don't lead the witnesses.
I'm not leading, I'm just explaining.
You're desperate to pick the England back row because that's the only thing you can contribute.
We're just trying to think about where you'd fit. So we thought the Italian would make a good front row, but we're just trying to work out back three of France.
No, what I like is just go blind, bugger the whole thing up for us so that we end up
where you'd want to put them,
what.
because you can only have one pair. So, if you choose something outlandish, you stuff somewhere else, and do you know what I mean? So
when you look at the Scottish halfbacks as well, Laidlaw and Russell, Price and Russell, Redpath, Townsend, and I'm not sure any of those necessarily will.
Yeah, there's lots of good ones there. Really, there really is. And I said to you when I came in, I said Troncon and Dominguez. They were a real stronghold of Italian rugby back in the day. But
would you want to be their outside backs though? Diego didn't do a lot.
No, not at all. They had strong forwards back in those days. Yeah, but they were pretty poor outside them. They had a massive centre called Stoica who played for a while. He was huge.
Christian Stoica.
But I mean, look
sounds
at
like a Russian foreign policy. Christian Stoica.
Look at the most talented. I think are DuPont and Tamac. But
who would you buy a ticket to watch?
I'd buy a ticket to DuPont and Tamac all day long.
But if you take them out, then who? And then
Stop caveating.
I'm just thinking.
But I think Dawson and Wilkinson for me probably most successful. The great win.
I would go with Dawson Wilkinson, maybe, because he was my 10 at Newcastle.
Well, he actually. I wanted to read a quote about what he said about you actually, because this we didn't cover this off in the first part, which I thought was amazing. Right, this is from Johnny Wilkinson, a man of a few words, but he said, "Inside me at scrum half, I have one of the toughest players in the world. We call Gary Armstrong the junkyard dog." What? I mean, that's high praise from Johnny Wilkinson.
I think he also said you were the best 9 he ever played with.
Yeah, he did. Did you take that compliment well? Did you take that?
Well, he was only 17 when he arrived at Newcastle, so
he played with a few 9s off the back of you though, as well.
He's played with a few off the back, but no, when Johnny arrived at Newcastle, he couldn't even drive a car.
Right,
we had to run him out everywhere.
Really?
And Rob Andrew tutored him. Rob Andrew was my 10 at Newcastle, and we had Johnny at 12. Played 12 and 13.
So we used to tape his head. He used to wear a headband.
What was the young Wilkinson like?
He punched away above his weight, unbelievable.
Really?
And he deserves everything he gets out of rugby, because when we'd all finished training, he'd still be there practicing.
Oh, really?
We used to play in Boxing Day matches down in London, and he'd be in Christmas Day kicking. He had the same routine all the time, and the hours of practice him and his brother put in were just unbelievable. Yeah. And as you say, he doesn't say very much.
No.
But what he does say, people listen to.
So, which one of those?
Do I get a vote in there as well?
I'm not, because you're trying to manipulate the whole thing so you can get Hill back Delalio in.
Well, no, I'm just. But okay.
We'll give it. Yeah, go on. You fellas go. DuPont and Tamac. If you're buying a ticket to watch any one of those three play, which
I've got to say DuPont is just something special. And
there is something special about it.
And when he's no way his partner in Tamac.
Would you have done it back in the day if GQ had come to you and said, "Listen, could you put on a big yellow fluffy dressing gown and pose on a chaise long?" Would you have said
probably no?
No. You would have said no. Yeah, no.
That's not my style.
No. You've been trucker time.
Yeah. Could you put a pair of wide fronts, a can of super tenants, and an armchair? I'm there.
It's a game for all shapes and sizes and sorts. Okay, we're all happy that we're going to put DuPont and Tamac in.
Go with that.
Well done, the kids.
Definitely.
So that locks in DuPont and Tamac. No going back now, and they joined Darcy and O'Driscoll in our heycar Dream Six Nations team. That's quite a backline coming together already.
Rougerie, Castagned, and
Philippe Bernat-Sal.
Yeah. Philippe Sella.
Yeah. Well, he's a centre. He's
been ruled out. Yeah, sorry, I don't know the rules. Honestly, every time Alex talks about his game,
away from you,
I just fade out of it. Honestly, as soon as you've got to explain a game that's that complicated, you lose it.
Welsh back three. It must be Shane Byrne. These guys must be.
Lee Byrne, Shane Williams.
That's why I like snakes and ladders, lads. If you're on a snake, you're going down. You're on a ladder, you're going up. That's the end of it. If you have to explain for half an hour, you've lost me.
Selecting a car from heycar is a much easier process, certainly that we've managed in this game so far. Buy your next car the feel-good way with heycar. And our team is coming together. Feel free to disagree as you see fit. I tell you what we haven't done is we haven't had too much on England from you. We obviously debriefed at Twickenham on Saturday.
Yeah. Was it the prettiest game in the world? No. Having watched it inside with you, I didn't realise what an ardent fan you are. Very shouty at the TV. All those people trying to relay the plates were slightly shocked as you were shouting, "Come on, England!" I thought there's some good performances. I think it was death by TMO, death by stoppage. I think it's ruining the game. Will England be pleased? Not really. Were Wales pretty much an under-20 side? Yeah. Should we have done better? I think so. But 2 wins from 2. Pressure's off. Some players stood up and played. I thought the defensive system looked better at times. There are things to be definitely improved on. But will Steve Borthwick breathe a sigh of relief? Yeah. But would you have paid to go and watch that? No.
I just really want this England team. They've become very good at grinding out wins. So interesting. I didn't realise this actually. They've won 8 of their last 9. Admittedly, they haven't won against anyone in the top 6. But they're winning margins 1, 6, 3, 3 and 2 points. So they are grinding them out. I'm just reminded of that story from Will Greenwood. He said that, I think it would have been 2001, 2. Clive Woodward said to the team, "How many tries are we going to score tomorrow against Wales?" And everyone went 2, 3, 4. And Austin Healey said 11. And of course, everyone in the room laughed. And he said, "Well, why not? Why don't we go out with the ambition of playing to score 11 tries?" And they ended up scoring 9. And I just sort of want the England team to stop talking about staying in the fight and grinding out a result and set their stall out, which is we're going to go to Murrayfield and win with a bonus point. How do we do that? Let's play.
I did find that interesting that beating the 9-point deficit, coming back from the Six Nations. Look, again, I thought Wales, with Tommy Raffel, what an incredible player. Jack Morgan, we thought was brilliant. He was a revelation at the World Cup. Tommy Raffel, causing no end of problems. I think to come back with a 9-point deficit, which England haven't done, actually shows a mark of maturity of a side that were relatively young. Again, was it pretty? No. Should we be in that place in the first place? No, I don't think so. And I think we're still getting the frustration where we're not seeing the kind of rugby we all want to go and watch.
Small steps forward, probably fair to say. I think a lot of England fans would love to see a big step forward sooner or later. Right, I'll tell you what we're going to do now is our British Airways High Flyers of the Week segment. And for the Six Nations, we're going to be doing something a little bit different because instead of us picking, we're asking you, the fans, to select the British Airways High Flyer of the Week via our Instagram. And the shortlist was made up of the player of the match, Ben Earl. What a try. Actually very reminiscent of Big Lol in 2000 where he carried half of Wales over with him. Alex Mitchell, who went well at 9, lots of variety in attack and defence, and Freddie Stewart, who is the English version of the bomb diffuser. Wales just couldn't get a foothold in the game with the way that he defended the airspace, which British Airways will love. Which of that 3 do you worry about going into the Calcutta Cup? Do any of those sort of make you think, okay?
I thought Ben Earl did so well for his try. I mean,
high energy, isn't he?
Really strong. He had no right to get there, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a poor defence by the Wales round the edge of there, but yeah, he had no right. He had no right to score that try. And I mean, even if he just stretching out the way he did stretch out, and that was a bit of a gamble as well. But he backed himself.
Carried over with
he's a confident boy, and yeah.
He plays with his heart on his sleeve. And that's what you need. You need some people to just take the game by the scruff of the neck, and you have to follow him.
I think Ben Earl was great. Carried that physicality, the competitiveness, because he was a bit quiet against Italy. We talked about Ethan Roots, whereas Cunningham South we talked about when he came on. I thought Ben Earl was brilliant.
You can see it in Ben Earl's eyes. You can see he was so up for it. He was so up for it. He was so up for the challenge, and it's just the way he plays.
You need another couple like him. And then
who's the sixth? The sixth.
Ethan Roots.
Yeah, I like him as well. He's a good player as well.
Undernor's played well.
In the second row as well. Smallest second row in international history.
Absolutely rearranged that guy, poor bloke from Wales. That would be livid. Livid if some bloke should throw the ball up there and you're turning. You're like, oh my god. Who do they go for then, Alex?
So, Hask, you'll be delighted to know they've gone for Ben Earl.
Excellent.
Yeah. The fans have
prevails.
spoken. Sense prevails. Ben Earl is our high flyer of the week, and British Airways connecting people to over 190 destinations across the world. To feel inspired for your next adventure, head over to ba.com. It has been a real pleasure to have you both down. Thank you so much for reminiscing on what was a very, very special era, not just for Scottish rugby, but I think, Hask, we'd all agree, just for the game in general as well. They were good times and good days when these two romped the plains of international rugby.
Yeah, look, I'm always very excited when you got two legends of the game who come in, tell the stories, and kind of it reinvigorates me always to kind of hear the fun and stories, because I didn't cross over into the amateur era, but I was with guys who did, so a lot of it, what we picked up in the stories, and you lads were real men in a real era, whereas kind of we were a bit more like robots off a conveyor belt. So I love the stories, I love the vibe. It's good to see the stories still go on. So thank you so much for coming in. I think people will find it really, really interesting.
Pleasure, guys.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.
You'll be there on the Calcutta Cup. Will you go to that one or not? You don't go to too many of them, do you?
I like to watch it on the TV.
Yeah.
You didn't get these people talking crap and stuff.
The ones he's running from.
He looked at me. I was like, fucking hell.
I'll be there.
Will Scotland do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one we're going to win again. So
I think we'll get off to a good start.
Yeah.
It's how we hang on in the last 20 minutes.
We shall see.
That's the worrying part.
Game of contrast.
Yep.
Take your boots just in case.
No.
And good luck, obviously, with the battle as well. I hope that goes
cheers,
really
mate.
well.
Thank
I know
you.
you'll smash
Cheers,
it out of the
Alex.
park. Gents, thank you very much indeed. Well done, the Hask. Nice to see you as always. We hope you've enjoyed this series, which has been the first of Rugby's Greatest Unions. There's so much more to come. We'd love your suggestions below the line as well. Do let us know who you'd like us to interview, and we'll get to as many as we can as we go. We've been the Good, the Bad and the Rugby with our very good friends at Continental Tires. Stats and facts provided by Oval Insights. We're a folding pocket production, and this episode was produced by Tom Edwards. We'll see you again soon, but from all of us, bye for now.